This is an introduction to working on single reeds. The techniques described in this DVD apply to both clarinet and saxophone reeds. You will learn about simple tools for reed work, how to seal a reed, both front and back, how to scrape a reed, how to observe and work the swoop of the reed, how to adjust the Légère reed, and lastly, how to store reeds to minimize radical swings in their performance. The proper and consistent placing of the reed on the mouthpiece is crucial to how well it will perform. Place the ligature on the mouthpiece first. Slide the reed underneath the ligature. This will prevent damaging the tip of the reed while putting on the ligature. The butt of the reed must be centered on the table of the mouthpiece. Part of the table can be seen here by the shiny area just below the butt of the reed. The top of the ligature should be placed just below the start of the cut of the vamp of the reed. Some mouthpieces have lines scored on them. Place the ligature between these lines. Use 2 fingers of one hand and the thumb of the other to control the left, right, and height positioning of the reed. Look at the reed in relation to the side rails and the tip rail. Be sure to position the reed exactly the same way on the mouthpiece each time you put it on. A small amount of tip rail can be seen behind a correctly placed reed. Moving the reed higher on the mouthpiece, exposing less tip rail, will make the reed seem a bit harder. This technique is useful to tweak a slightly soft reed. The left, right, and height positioning of a reed are crucial to how it will perform. You may strengthen a slightly soft corner of the reed by moving the reed off-center slightly to the side of that soft corner. Proper placing of the Légère reed on the mouthpiece is even more crucial. A millimeter in any direction can make a huge difference. Once the reed is positioned correctly, tighten the ligature screws until they are just snug. You will need to rotate a number of reeds through the break-in process, so it is best to start with an unopened box of reeds. I prefer Van Doren V12 reeds on clarinet and a Van Doren reed on saxophone. You will need sheets of wet dry sandpaper. 320, 400, and 600 grit are required to work on reeds. Cut the sandpaper into pieces at least 1 1/2 inches square. Here are some tools required for reed work. A reed knife, hollow ground, is what I like to use. It is sharpened very easily by laying the knife flat on a sharpening stone. A piece of flat glass or plexiglass is required to work on the surface and on the back of the reed. This is an axe file. It provides a flat surface for working on the backs of reeds. The burrs on one side of the file are twice as dense as the burrs on the other side of the file. Some players moisten the reed in their mouths, while others use a glass of fresh water. I prefer to moisten the reed in my mouth. I feel that the saliva has a curing effect on the reed. Some players prefer to use water to moisten the reed. Whatever method you choose, remember that you are moistening the reed, not soaking it. It is important that the reed is flat on the back. The reed should be massaged with firm, equal pressure on a very flat, smooth surface, such as a tabletop or the back of a plexiglass reed case. You may also use a piece of plexiglass or flat glass on which to massage the back of the reed. Massaging the back of the reed helps polish the back, which prevents it from waterlogging. With the reed on a flat surface, massage the vamp of the reed vigorously with your thumb. This will get the oils from your thumb into the tubules of cane on the vamp of the reed. This helps seal the reed against moisture and waterlogging. One of the keys to a responsive reed is for the reed to have a smooth, flat back. Placing equal pressure on 3 points on the reed, massage the reed lightly but vigorously on a file. Massaging the reed in this way will polish the back, making the high spots on the reed seem shiny. I prefer using a file to the rough side of sandpaper as the file removes very little material. Mind the tip of the reed as you're massaging the reed on the file. I like to polish the back of my reed on the file or on the reed case when I put it away after playing. This helps promote a flat back on the reed, and it also helps to remove the indentations made by the window on the back of the mouthpiece. An alternative to using a file is to place a piece of sandpaper grit side down on a flat surface. Massage the back of the reed in the same way on the back of the sandpaper. After massaging the reed, hold the reed up to the light and look for a reflection. The high spots will seem shiny. The reed you are looking at here is high at the tip and high in the middle of the reed. Experience has shown me that a reed that looks like this will probably not play very well. However, if this reed is filed regularly, both before and after playing, it may be coaxed into becoming a flatter, more usable reed. With the reed on the plexiglass, take the square of sandpaper and fold it over the end of your finger. Using moderate pressure, sand the vamp of the reed. Start at the back of the vamp, work your way down, and lightly finish off the tip with light strokes. The sanding process helps seal the vamp of the reed, and it makes for a very nice and smooth feeling reed. Use 600 or 400 grit for smaller reeds, 320 for larger reeds. Here is a look at how to scrape a reed. Place the reed on a piece of plexiglass which is supported by your index finger. Place the knife perpendicular to the surface of the reed and use your thumb to help push the knife along the reed. It is important to keep the knife perpendicular to the reed. If the angle becomes too acute, you will cut the reed and not scrape it. Here the angle of the reed knife is becoming more and more acute. It is cutting the reed, not scraping it. Cutting out chunks of the reed will ruin it. Here is another look at that scraping technique. Again, note that the knife never gets to an acute angle. It remains perpendicular at all times. When scraping the reed, be aware of removing too much material. Try a couple of light scrapes and then try the reed. You can always scrape some more, but you cannot replace removed material. Most commercial reeds have too much material near the start of the cut of the vamp. There is a very easy adjustment that will make these reeds more responsive. This adjustment makes the swoop deeper near the start of the cut of the vamp of the reed. I am showing the swoop here by the swooping action of my knife. The swoop is measured by the start of the cut of the vamp of the reed and the tip of the reed. Here the swoop is the black area seen between the reed and the knife. If there is too much material near the start of the cut of the vamp, the reed will seem tubby and unresponsive. This symptom is more pronounced in larger reed, such as bass clarinet and saxophone reeds. In most commercial reeds, the swoop is quite gradual. The swoop seems widest near the middle of the reed. We need to make the swoop seem steeper by scraping near the start of the cut of the vamp of the reed. The swoop should be moved to nearer the start of the cut of the vamp, approximately 1/3 along the cut of the vamp. Here is a look as to where we should scrape to change the swoop. In addition to tubbiness and unresponsiveness, an improperly placed swoop may lead to sharpness due to biting. Here I am scraping from the start of the cut of the vamp of the reed to about the halfway area of the vamp. The scrape is an even fan-shaped scrape. The amount of scraping shown here is more than enough to effect change. A reminder, scrape once, play twice. You cannot replace removed material. Moving the swoop back to near the start of the cut of the vamp of the reed and keeping the back flat are two keys to a responsive reed. However, sometimes it is necessary to balance the tip and the corners of the reed. Using your thumb, check for flex on one corner and then the other corner of the reed. The flex should be about the same. You should also check for flex at the tip of the reed. It should flex evenly and slightly about 1/16 of an inch behind the start of the tip. Another way to test to see if the corners are balanced is to dampen one corner of the reed inside your mouth while blowing on open G. You can do this by putting the corner of the reed against your lower lip. Dampen one corner, test, then dampen the other corner and test again. One corner will likely be freer blowing than the other corner. There are two ways to compensate for unbalanced corners. The simplest way is to move the tip of the reed in the direction of the weaker corner. The other method is to scrape the heavier corner with a reed knife. One or two very light, delicate scrapes is all that you will need to notice a change. If you wish, and instead of scraping the heavier corner with a knife, you can round over the softer corner with sandpaper. The Légère reed is a single reed made from synthetic materials. It is available for most single reed instruments, and it excels at the larger instruments such as bass clarinet and saxophone. Unlike some of its predecessors, it has exceptional playing qualities and a fine sound. The Légère reed is available in a number of different cuts. It is unaffected by changes of humidity, and it performs marvelously over changes in altitude. The Légère reed is quite particular as to how it is placed on the mouthpiece. Consistent placement is crucial, and a ½ millimeter in any direction will make a substantial difference. You must also be careful when tightening the ligature, as the reed may move. Many fine professional players use Légère reeds straight out of the package, unaltered. I like to tweak the performance of this reed by working in the swoop area. As the tip of the Légère reed is machined to within thousandths of an inch in tolerance, working in this area with a knife is not advised. As with cane reeds, I like to move the swoop nearer to the start of the cut of the vamp. I do this by scraping in a fan-shaped pattern. Scraping here may make a tubby reed seem less so. For more on knife technique, or for how to move the swoop of the reed, please refer to earlier segments of this DVD. Reeds should be held in a humidity-controlled environment, such as a Ziploc plastic bag. A simple but economical reed case has a piece of plexiglass with elastic bands holding the reeds to the glass. I like to keep some reeds in the plastic bag with a sponge and some outside of the plastic bag with no sponge. This is what I mean by a wet case and a dry case. This is a typical reed case. Inside, there's a piece of flat glass on which the reeds are stored. The reeds are often stored with the thick or the butt end placed towards the back of the case. Depending on the design of the case, some players will store the tip towards the back. This is a plexiglass reed case made by Precision Music Products of Toronto. It has an area milled out inside of the case on which to hold the reeds. Inside the case is a sponge. This can be moistened to keep the reeds moist inside of the case. Salt may be added to the sponge to help control humidity inside of the case. There is a rubber gasket that surrounds the entire upper lid, which keeps the reed case sealed. The clever design of this case has 2 screws at the back, which may be loosened or removed completely to control humidity inside of the case.